AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's The Walking Dead After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Walking Dead After Show.
Hey guys, what is happening? And welcome to The Walking Dead After Show, because Bing is for doing, and we're doing The Walking Dead. Another episode, kind of a little more focused, and not as much action as before, but I liked it. I enjoyed that aspect. But first, guys, let me introduce you, the ever so lovely Daryl, Kristin.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Always so beautiful over there.
Thank you, I try.
And a little, pretty handsome, I'd say. I think that's the right word. Kristin, Carole.
Hi, guys.
And guys, sitting next to me, Nando Velasquez.
I have no idea what I am, but hi, how you doing?
Just amazing. You're just rocking it.
Amazing.
In the booth, we've got Stephen Lemieux.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And guys, I am Dave Klein. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will be talking about this episode, which I was totally thrown off by. I was not expecting at all that the governor and Rick would be trying to talk it out.
Yeah.
No, I remember thinking, did we miss something? Are they going to go back? Or is it going to be a little bit momentum that all of a sudden we're going to find out what happened before? But they just dove right into it.
Well,
Yeah, I was like, is it a dream? You know, that's what I thought it was going to be, like some dream that Rick was having, you know, to kill the governor, you know, something like that.
Yeah, well, the clips last week, they showed a little bit,
Yeah.
but it looked more like a trap or something. It didn't look like it was going to be a parlay. Like
Exactly.
It seemed like so action-packed, and it was very suspenseful,
Yeah.
but not as action-packed as we expected. I think.
Intense.
They're pretty good at doing that when they cut together the promos for the next week and upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought at the beginning that they were going to be scouting for food or something like that, or maybe sneaking up to try to get to Woodbury. I had no idea that it was going to be this parlay.
I mean, I figured something was going to happen just because they were walking into the house and it was just, you know, the way they were setting everything up, but I would have never suspected that it was going to be the governor interaction there.
Yeah.
No, and it had you on the edge of your seat, too, because it's completely quiet.
Yeah.
So you're really watching and what's going to happen, and all of a sudden he walks up. I thought there was going to be a jump scare or something, although Walking Dead's a little bit above that. So
Well, we've also gotten so used to the walkers now that it pretty much doesn't really scare us too much anymore. But before we talk about this whole parlay and the whole negotiation that they try to do, let's go take it back to the prison and talk about Glenn and all the prisoners trying to prepare for war with all the weapons that we saw last week that Rick had hauled back. And Merle just thinking that they should just go and kill the governor while this is happening. What did you guys take away from it?
Merle's such a loose cannon. I mean, Merle's probably the last person that I would be listening to in any kind of leadership role at all. But I understand where he was coming from because he knows the governor. You know, he's closer to the governor. He's had more experiences with the governor. So in his mind, he's like, we got to take this guy out, or otherwise he's going to definitely come back for us, which obviously we know he is. So, I mean, that was my take on it. I thought it was a great beginning scene with Merle and his loose cannon.
well, and they didn't, as we saw in the show, that they didn't know how many people were with the governor. If it was just him, or he brought a couple of people, or if he brought all of the guys that are able to do combat. So it was a really bad idea, not knowing what they were going into, and it was very good that they stopped him from going.
I mean, he had a point, though, when you think about it. This really was their big opportunity to take care of the governor once and for all. I mean, granted, they had no idea what was happening, and you'd hope that he would be willing to negotiate and do something, which would then seem like a bad idea. But he does have a point.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Merle knows enough about the governor that he could have done something. It probably would have been a successful run if he got his way. The question is, what's he willing to sacrifice in order to do that? Obviously, he cares about his brother, and that was his motivation. But as when he was talking later to Michonne, if the bullets fly, she's gonna have to make up her mind. If she gets hit, she gets hit. And who knows? He probably feels the same way about Rick and about Hershel and then there you go. You might have the governor dead, but then you have a different situation completely than what could have been expected. But what was also amazing about that whole thing is Glenn finally seems to have gotten a clearer head.
Yeah.
Being the leader, the in facto leader in the group while they're doing the parlay.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody think that slight fight was unfair because Merle has a knife for a hand?
Hey, but you have
Is that
another
right on
hand
the
for
ground?
gripping, though, so...
Yeah.
Well, it still took a lot of them to get him off of Glenn, you know,
Yeah.
so he's still a strong guy. I mean, it literally took Michonne, Maggie, and I think it was just Michonne and Maggie, but it took both of their strengths just to even pull him off of Glenn.
Oh, yeah.
But we know Glenn wanted to go on that run last time, so he was really itching to go after the governor, and now is the point where Merle's actually giving a good argument, like we could take the governor out. Do you think that even though Glenn is thinking clearer, do you think he would have considered it more if it wasn't Merle who was the one telling him to go? Maybe he was just flexing his guns to Merle.
No, I think I think if Glenn really wanted it because he considered himself the leader at that point, he was pointing out, he would have done it. I don't think it was just specifically for Merle and for the sake of that. I really think Glenn had kind of changed his mind and really did think it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised because Glenn is so emotional based, you know, so I'm glad he made the right decision, but you know, he's still a little hurt by everything that happened, so it's hard for me to see where he's still going to make his decisions in the future because he is so emotionally drawn to the situation. So,
Well, we have Merle telling Carole that Rick is going to hang, and Carl stands up for his father, whereas before he's telling his father, or just talking about how he didn't think his father could lead to Rick himself. He's standing up for his dad in front of other people, at least.
yeah.
And so he still is standing up for him and does still believe in his father, which I think that you can take away from that.
I think that's important too, because again, Rick is back to form again. He's clear thinking, and now, before when Glenn was acting, he was acting because there was a lot of chaos going on. So it seems like they're all on the same page. Maybe Merle not so much,
Right.
but everyone's on the same page, and they seem to have faith in Rick.
Yeah.
And you have Beth is the one who actually breaks up the fight with the gunshot, which was pretty surprising that it would be
That's
her.
great.
So I think that was also kind of an unexpected thing, and it's kind of like, I think that's also kind of helps calm them down because nobody would expect her to be the one to do that.
Right.
Because it's kind of, if she's the one who has to break up the fight, I think it kind of makes everyone stop and say, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, the bigger question was she had pulled the trigger if she needed to.
I don't think so.
I don't think she
I don't
would have.
think so.
But she still successfully stopped the fight.
She did.
So Merle's still not happy about it, though, and he goes to talk with Michonne and try to convince Michonne to take his side and at least leave with him, and Michonne's not having any of it either. And she kind of just points out that Merle doesn't care about anyone else dying from crossfire like Andrea, and Michonne just doesn't want any more deaths.
And I love that she brought up Andrea in particular. It wasn't, what about Rick? What about Daryl? It was,
Right.
what about Andrea? And so that friendship is still really strong that way. And I love when she shut him down, Merle's just looking for somebody to say yes, and he does not have the guts to go out and do it by himself, though, either.
Well, so at the beginning, I think he was going to and trying to. It's just Glenn was stopping him.
He just needed.
But even
a
after
decide.
that, nobody
Yeah.
was keeping an eye on him. And if he really wanted to go, he could have just snuck out then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
And I don't think he wanted that to be on him. And all of the stuff that we see him do, there's usually somebody in the back kind of pushing him along or saying it's okay or really not entirely stopping him. But I love what she said. If you go, it's all on you. I'm not sure he wants that right now because he also just got his brother. And if it goes bad, Daryl is not going to be happy either with him.
Do you think he also didn't go to because he probably knows that the governor's got a lot of manpower and him going by himself is really not going to resolve anything outside? I mean, sure, he may be able to take the governor out, but the governor's going to have so many other guys there that could easily take him out if he's there by himself.
Absolutely, because they didn't know how many guys they had.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't seem to care in the beginning, but I think the big question is maybe the reason why he didn't want to go out is because he knew he was the only person that was going to go out, and he has a home, even though it's
Yeah.
not his preferable home, maybe even though it's not these people that he really prefers to be with. It's like he puts himself out there, and he could alienate himself from both sides.
Yeah.
Do you think he actually would have gone all the way through with it if Glenn would have said, "Go ahead by yourself"? Do you think he actually would have made it all the way there?
Oh yeah, he's
Or do you
not.
think he eventually would have turned around or just stood there and maybe changed his
I mean,
mind?
he seems pretty determined as a character when he makes up his mind he's going to do something. And maybe he did finally change his mind later on and come to his senses. But I think in that initial moment, he would have gone out and done it had he been permitted to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's determined. He's badass. He's pretty badass. If he wants to do something, he's going to do it. He's got a knife on one hand, and he's got so he's going to go out there. And as he said, he had a system already worked out with Daryl from when they used to go hunting. So as far as he's concerned, he's not even going alone. He's going there to back up his brother, and his brother would have taken it. Well, he thinks his brother would have taken his side. I think the question is, if Merle did that, what would Daryl have done? Would Daryl have gone on his side, or would Daryl have been like, wait a second, we're trying to work something out here and try and stop Merle?
I could see Daryl doing that, a little pissed off, like, what are you doing here?
I think he would have been pissed off.
So we also have Glenn and Maggie finally making up, too, back in the prison area and seeing where we're at, which was nice to see. It was nice to have them finally have that chat and finally kind of, well, basically Glenn making up to Maggie and telling her that he was sorry for being selfish. And I was glad to see at least some positivity going on in the background of the prison, because I do like them as a couple, and it's nice to see them working out their issues.
Yeah.
And then
They definitely worked
finding
out
some
their
space
Right?
in the best of ways possible.
I loved when they started kissing, and then they're like, oh wait, these zombies are looking at us.
Yeah.
And they cut to a zombie with their mouth like going through the fence,
Yeah,
like
that's
when they
great.
wanted to join in or something.
Well, who wouldn't?
Almost a mood killer. Not quite.
Not quite,
Not
apparently,
quite.
no.
Nah, you just need to close the fence behind you. I mean, they're so used to it at this point. It's just like ambiance.
Yeah.
I've raised this question before. I hope there's a lot of condoms in that prison somewhere, because they don't want any more pregnancies going on.
I don't think they were really thinking about that at that time.
Yeah,
I don't think they were saying, wait a second, let's stop a second, let's go back into prison, let's look and see if we have any extras.
Look, there's other ways where you don't need to worry about it.
Let's not
anybody-
start teaching people anything like that.
I was really nervous when they first went in there, and thinking this is a happy moment, something's gonna happen, because nobody's watching the zombies right now.
Yeah.
I was worried too that something bad was gonna happen too.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, they shut the gate. Something's gonna happen,
Yeah.
and then nothing. Which, all right, good, but I was worried
Thankfully.
too.
And then they cut immediately to Rick and the governor, and you go, in a situation not as much fun currently. Meanwhile,
I don't know what you're talking about. Trying to negotiate with an asshole, and
they were drinking
Makeup sex.
whiskey,
They
so
were
maybe
drinking
that equal. No, just kidding.
which the governor always uses for everything.
Yeah.
Whenever he's trying to talk people up.
Yeah.
But let's jump and talk about kind of the henchman crew, as Martinez refers to.
Henchman versus the butler.
Yeah.
Yes. As kind of what Martinez refers to it as, even though he doesn't consider himself a henchman. But we have, and it was kind of nice to see that pair up, because there's Martinez and Daryl, who are kind of the badass fighters of the group, kind of paired up. And then you have the pair up of Hershel and Milton, who are kind of the more reasonable ones of the group paired up. So it's kind of fun to see those two as the ones that they chose to pair off, and see those comparisons between the two.
Yeah, and I like the part with Martinez and Daryl with the zombie game, basically, like who could take out the most zombies, and had the way that they did it.
The
And then it takes
one-upmanship.
a woman to start it.
And-
Just saying.
She just sighs and just does the first kill. And
Right.
she's just like, all right, guys, whatever.
And she does it with a smaller weapon. She has
did.
this very small switchblade
Yes, yeah.
and just jams it in his eye. And Daryl's got a huge crossbow as usual, and Martinez has a bat, and she just goes in and takes care of business.
He's
I
got a
liked
new
Andrea
crossbow.
here.
Yes.
That's what I wrote
We
that down.
noticed the
Was
arrows.
that the one
Yeah,
that
'cause there were
Michonne
green
brought
arrows
back?
this time.
There
Yeah.
were green arrows
Yeah.
that Michonne got at the end of the last week.
Okay, I
Yeah.
thought that was it.
There's something I wanted to point out, and now I'm kind of blanking out what it was. But that's something to do with Daryl. Oh, well. So
Anything with Daryl?
we have... it was the fact that during that scene, I kind of think that the reason that they weren't starting it out was because they didn't want to show off what they had to each other at
Right.
first. I kind of took it that way, which is why Andrea had to start it. At least that was the way I was interpreting
I
it.
thought they just didn't want to turn their back on each other. They're still distrustful. That's the vibe.
That's what it seemed
I
like to me.
got.
Like they just were they were going back and forth with so many, little. What did Martinez tell them to shut your mouth to Daryl?
they were ready.
I just think it was more, if you saw once they finally did kill someone, I think they wanted the other one to see if they could handle it, and it was more of a, you think you can do this?
Yeah.
All right, you go first, and oh no, after you. And if you saw when Martinez hit the guy in the head, he looked at Daryl and smiled at him.
He did.
He's like, he beat that.
So something with Daryl's crossbow, too, that I was kind of thinking was they just raided and have all this awesome weaponry. And he's standing there guard as a car is pulling up with who knows how many people.
I know, yeah.
And all he has is a crossbow. You
Yeah.
would think, as much as I love the crossbow, you would think that he would have some sort of submachine gun or something with
yeah.
him when there's multiple people. Because a crossbow is good for one kill, but not necessarily multiple people that you have to
That's
kill.
all Daryl needs, Dave.
Oh, yes, Kristin. I should have known. I should have known. But we kind of have them finally, after that moment, have a chance to talk to each other and kind of relate to each other a little bit. And Martinez reveals to Daryl, the story about what happened to his family and how he lost his whole family to the walkers. And they kind of share a smoke. So, unfortunately, not menthols, but they share a smoke there and get to finally catch up and relate to each other.
Yeah.
And they both kind of decide, like, hey, this isn't going to work out. This is just pointless.
Yeah.
But you can see that they don't necessarily hate each other either. They don't necessarily want to have to kill each other.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to see obviously a little bit more about how Martinez thinks. And I mean, at the end of the day, he made the statement. He said, in 2 days or whatever, we're going to, he said something about being against each other in a couple of days.
Yeah, he says this whole thing's a joke,
This whole
isn't it?
thing's a joke, yeah. So, I mean, it's nothing personal for him. It's like business.
Ultimately, Martinez is a soldier.
Right.
That's what he is. But it was really good to see them bond. And for a second, it just seemed like Martinez was picturing, man, what if we were on the same side?
Oh, yeah.
I could actually, I would actually like this guy.
Yeah.
I could hang out with him more often and have conversations like this.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. And I think Daryl is as good as he is. He also considers himself a soldier too. So he's just in agreement. He's like, yep, when push comes to shove.
This might be a prediction, but do you guys see Martinez as maybe becoming a recurring character in the next season?
No.
Not at all?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think
I think
so.
it'll just be this season. Do you? Steven in the booth.
I mean, with people like this, it makes it harder for them to kill each other when they introduce them and bond a little bit over this, because it's human on human right now. It's not human on zombie. So for them to actually give the time for a scene like that in an episode that could be full of so many other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've seen so many instances where they give you a moment to care about the character, and then in the next scene they kill them, specifically because they gave you that scene to kill them in this show. So I feel like I don't think we're going to see Martinez again. I think that's a non-point.
I think at the very least, however the attack happens between either side, if Daryl sees Martinez, I think there will be some sort of exchange or, I'm sorry, I know, buddy, this is what happens. I think at the very least that's what we'll see, but I don't think it'll be a character necessarily that'll reoccur.
I mean, without going too far into it, Martinez is in a comic, but he has an interesting struggle, but based on anything that I don't want to talk about, yeah, it's possible, but I don't really see him being too relevant in the future. Yeah.
So Lions fan on the chat commented that at the end of the scene, he knows that there's just a light bulb went off when they realized that they had so much in common. And I kind of agree with that statement. I think that's kind of what we've been emphasizing. And let's go ahead and talk about the other group, which would be Hershel and Milton kind of chatting over there, who are kind of the ones who tend to hold things down and try to be smart about things, and Milton all asking and quandering about the scientificicities of things.
Sure.
I think I'm trying to make up a word there.
Yeah, you are, but
I think I'm trying to make up a word, but
Science
that's
of
all
it
right.
all. There you go.
For science.
Yeah, science.
But
They're blinded by science.
Oh, Revolution.
Oh, boy, those were the days.
for science, if you guys watch our
our-
Revolution show.
That's a reference to
It is a reference.
There you go.
So I liked having them too and seeing them, and I thought it was kind of funny that moment where Hershel wouldn't reveal to Milton his leg, whereas we know in the back the real reason is because he actually has a gun there.
Right.
But I did like that moment as well between them relating to each other and how they really just care about trying to figure out survival, and they kind of relate as well.
Yeah, what I loved about that scene too is when Milton is asking so many questions about the leg, and Hershel has the comic relief of the episode, and he's like, "Could you buy me a drink first before ask me all these questions?" So I mean, I like the pairing of those two, because you got to see a different side of Hershel too, because he's always so serious.
I will say this: it was a really interesting pairing in the sense that for this parlay, you bring your toughest guns, Daryl and Martinez, and then you bring. I mean, Milton, I don't think he's ever had a gun in his life, so he seems too weak to really be that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Hershel, not that he's the same thing, but he's obviously hampered. So I don't know if you'd want those two guys backing you up if stuff hits the fan.
It is kind of a weird crew to bring when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you bring those two, the peacekeeper ones? And I know, like, I guess Rick thinks of Hershel as his confidant, as we see later in the episode.
Yeah.
And the governor thinks of Milton as his confidant, so maybe that's why.
In a different way, though. I don't know if in the same exact way, but he
But he
trusts
still
him to
does
talk.
admit everything to
Yes,
Milton.
true.
Well, I liked how much they were sharing, too, because when Milton was asking Hershel all those questions, if you noticed, Hershel had Milton's book and was going through it. So obviously they are trying to exchange ideas and get to know each other and figure out each other's way of life. And I think Hershel is also curious about how they started and how much was in. It was a very small book.
Yeah.
To have a lot of it. I'm hoping he has a few other ones.
And I guess we'll see more later, but again, the question is Milton, do any of them have sympathy for the other person? Well, Hershel, I think we know does, but the question is Milton, who is such a lackey for the governor, how does he feel about talking to these guys? Is he moved by them, kind of like Martinez almost seemed to be moved by
Well, we
his
see later he is.
Yeah, I think he is.
very
It's just he's
moved
just
by
so
it.
scared by the governor.
Yeah.
You know, he's just
Yeah.
petrified to know if he doesn't do anything right, what the governor will do to him. So, but I do think he has compassion for the other people.
Yeah, we've seen in previous episodes too where he doesn't necessarily agree with the governor going out and killing them. He just kind of nervously goes along with it because he doesn't know what else to do. And he just doesn't, like you said, want to get murdered
Right.
in the same sort of way. So before we go on and chat about the actual negotiations going on, I do want to say, guys, that we do provide this show for you, and we love your feedback and support in any way possible, whether that be going on YouTube, go on iTunes, please rate and comment, positive or negative. It doesn't matter. We just want your feedback so we know how we can make this show better for you guys. Or you can chat with us on the live chat, which is going on right now. That's 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 in the a.m. Eastern time. So definitely come on, chat with us, and we'll try and include you and have you guys chat with us as well. And be part of it. So, or you can even call in. I think someone was asking about that in a live chat, so definitely call in if you want to. I don't have the number in front of me, but if you want to call in, please do. So let's go on then to the actual negotiation scene, which is where we start out with Rick and the governor by themselves, and Rick is holding his gun to the governor, and the governor is saying, hey, I don't want, let's just trust each other. I won't have my gun, and he puts down his belt, even though he secretly has a gun under the table. And that's kind of where we started out.
Very Godfather of him. That's what I was thinking. Had it taped already at the table when he got there.
Oh, what's great about that scene, it just adds suspense to the whole episode because he's pretty much sitting down at that seat for 2/3 of the entire time. So,
I'm wondering, is he going to use it?
there's
Is he
always an
not?
element of danger involved in these conversations.
I was just hoping, I was like, Rick, please don't put down your gun. That's all I could think about. Do not put down your gun. And I love the music that they play. Have you ever listened to the music they play when the governor's in any scene? It's always very dark and sinister. They change the whole thing. That's my favorite part of when he pops in because it's like the music automatically changes for the governor.
I mean, I think it's kind of funny because, well, first you have Andrea there as the one who's trying to negotiate, and they just both kick her out.
Yeah.
They both do not want her there, and she's just trying her best to help. And I feel like we're finally getting, to me, a good side of Andrea because if you guys have listened to this show, I've hated on her a lot because I really disliked her character in previous seasons, and she's finally trying to kind of redeem herself, both in the eyes of the show, but also kind of our viewers' eyes. But she just immediately kicked out. They don't want her in there, and they're just there to kind of do their own thing. And Rick kind of comes up with this blueprint, and the governor tells Rick that he's there for their surrender, which, what a great way to start a negotiation, right? Like, okay, what is this then?
You know how the mood is set that way. I also loved Andrea in this particular episode, and I tend to like her more as the season's going on because she's taking more control of everything, and she does seem more level-headed, and she knows both of these guys, and they're both having issues. You probably don't want two guys having issues trying to decide the fates of almost 100 people.
Yeah, especially those
altogether.
two. Yeah.
All right, guys, so we actually do have a caller right now if you want to say hey.
Hi, caller.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's Ray from New York.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, love the AfterBuzz, so I figured I'd give you guys a call, and I figured I'd stay up late tonight and listen live and give you guys a call and just discuss the show.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice,
that's right.
thanks.
It is late New York time, and I don't really think about
That's
that
true.
too much. So what
The
did
city that never sleeps, though, so it's
That's
okay.
true.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And you're
us,
probably
all right.
Yeah,
about
we
to
have
go
a
out.
New Yorker,
I'm a New
Nando.
Yorker, yeah, so I represent.
Oh, good man, good man. Great. Yeah, I really enjoyed the show today. I'll just say quickly about Andrea. I know you guys were just talking about her, though. I mean, she might be, coming around a little bit, but what is it going to take for her to leave those guys and go back to her friends with the prison? I mean, she's seen all the awful things that has gone on, and you heard a little bit of more stuff tonight about what the governor had done to, gosh, I can't think of her
Maggie.
name right
Maggie.
now.
Yeah,
right,
Maggie.
right. And she's still, at the end, she goes right in the car and drives away with those guys.
That was, if you saw before she got in the car, she looked at Hershel because they talked about it, where she goes, I really don't want to go back there. And he said, if you don't, and you're always family with us, but if you don't, that means this war begins. And I think if that wouldn't have been the case and Hershel wouldn't have said that, I think we would have seen Andrea get into the car.
I think we
Hopefully
actually...
she has sexy time and just kills him, like Carole said.
But I think we actually see in the previews for next week's episode, and maybe this is a prediction here, but I think we actually see her kind of conspiring with Milton.
Yeah.
I think we are going to see that in the upcoming episode because we do see, at least in the previews, that's kind of what we got a glimpse of.
She has taken more of a leadership role, and I think as a leader, she realizes she has to be where she's needed the most.
Yeah.
And even if she doesn't trust the governor, I think she still has some faith in Woodbury in general, and that maybe she could sway some people.
Okay, now before you go, I do have one question for you, which is, if you were Rick, who would you have believed the governor, and would you have thrown Michonne under the water?
Oh, my goodness. I wouldn't believe him at all. And I'm hoping Rick doesn't go for that because, I mean, I'm really starting to like Michonne, and I was happy with last week. It appeared that, you know, they finally bonded with her and trusted her. And now, you know, the governor throws this in. And I know Rick has to think about everybody in his group as well. But all the things he's heard about the governor, I can't believe he would actually believe that once he hands her over that the governor would leave them alone. So I'm really hoping he doesn't do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he does totally trust him, which we find out at the end. But thank you so much for your call. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll come in again next week. All right, so let's get back onto the governor topic, and the Rick topic with them trying to work it out. And we have Rick kind of... the governor kind of reveals to Rick at first. One of the first things he does is tell him this story about what happened to his wife in the hospital. And he kind of opens up. And I mean, did you guys believe his story?
I think the governor did a lot of dancing this episode, a lot of manipulating. If you really pay attention, he just kept trying to hammer Rick on every single angle, just by giving him information that he knew a lot more about him than Rick probably expected. And what surprised me was the story about the wife. Rick obviously had he just lost his wife, and I thought it was really interesting, the whole conversation about the phone, and he kept hammering like, oh, she left a message on, what could she have said on the phone, which makes me think that maybe when Andrea was back at the prison, even though we didn't see or hear the episode, that part of the episode, that maybe she heard from Hershel or something about Rick's delusions before, and maybe even about the phone, maybe from Hershel, because I thought it was just way too close to home.
It was
way
very
too
coincidental.
Close to home.
Yeah, and I don't believe anything that he has to say, and I think that, like you kind of what you were saying, Nando, but he knows how to push the right buttons and to get the right reactions and play his stories accordingly to that. So I didn't believe anything, but we did get a reveal sort of today where he had said his last name. Blake.
Yeah.
Well, one interesting thing too, and this is a very, very minor spoil, not even in the comics, but more in the book, The Rise of the Governor. The governor technically wasn't married, and so it makes me even wonder if that was again another story. If we were to believe at least everything in the past is the same, follows canon, not to say that the decisions that are made on a TV show follow the decisions that have been made in the comic book, you would think that if that's the same, then this might be the same governor that is led to believe that started out in the same canon as the book.
And I do wonder that how much they follow the backgrounds of the characters for this show because of things like that. And I feel like for the most part they have, but I mean, you have to wonder that. And that's also kind of an offshoot that I don't think everybody has necessarily seen. But you do have to wonder that.
I believe the governor's story. I think obviously it was emphasized for Rick as an audience. Everybody changes their story slightly depending on who they're speaking with. But he said earlier to Andrea when he was showing pictures around his house that his wife had died before all of this, and he never really elaborated on it. And I know they've been trying to make the governor a more sympathetic character than in the comics. So to relate him the entire way to the comics, I definitely think that's not something they're looking to do because they want you to care more for him. So I wonder if people who didn't read the comics, and hopefully somebody can comment who doesn't, what they think of the governor and his transition here rather than
I mean, one thing I'll say, though, with that in mind, too, is just that the governor in the comics, like you said, is just a totally different character. So, I mean, that could also play into it that they are trying to switch. And they have switched his character a lot, like you said. So, I mean, it is possible that he has a different backstory because of that.
People who know both probably would agree that they feel that the governor, at least on the TV show, seems to be have a good side to him. Not as evil as the governor in the comic. But if you really think about today's episode and how much he was trying to manipulate, and even if that story was fake, that would be one of the most evil things that he could do. That would probably put him more in sync with the character in the book.
Yeah.
So after this whole scene, we finally find out what the governor wants, which is Rick assumes that the governor just wants them to give up the prison, and the governor reveals, at least supposedly, all that he wants is Michonne, the person who, as he reveals his eye, cut up his eye and did that to him. And he doesn't reveal to Rick anything about his daughter and that whole backstory that we know and why he really hates Michonne so much, which has more to do with his child and his headroom and all that being destroyed. But that's what he really wants, is supposedly. And that's what he's giving out to Rick, that he just wants Michonne and then it'll all be over. And he gives Rick an ultimatum. Either you give me Michonne and we can stop all these deaths from happening. We can stop everything. Or you don't. And this is what causes the war. It's just one life. Are you willing to give up one life for the lives of so many people?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that Michonne is the key component in his retaliation, but I don't believe that he won't kill everybody else even when he has Michonne. Not, he definitely wants her first, but he wants to take out everybody else too because he sees Rick as a threat, and he knows that Rick and he are never going to be on the same camp.
Interesting about this whole thing is obviously last week's episode, she finally got to bond with the group, so she's that much more valuable. If this episode happened before Clear happened, before they actually went on their own little trip, it probably would have been a much easier decision. And Rick, but this is a very conflicting decision. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, perfect timing, and I'm sure the writers planned it, is right after that scene, that's when they went to Merle and Michonne, and that was Michonne's chance to say, let's go kill the governor.
Yeah.
And she didn't. So it was almost her chance to save herself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I definitely think the reason Rick questions it is just based on the rest of their conversation earlier. If that's all he wanted, why didn't he just say that from the start? Why do all that build up with the surrender, and there's not going to be any lines drawn in the map that they had? Rick wasn't buying it, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to, as we saw later. He really wanted to believe that, because you do question it, maybe that is all he wants. But if he was saying all that other stuff and leading up to it earlier and trying to use his kids so much, then there's something wrong with him. There's too many movies, too, that you watch where the bad guy says, if you give me this one thing, and then they end up killing everybody anyways.
I mean, it's kind of a weird way, too, to, let's liquor Rick up and say all I want is one person to die. It's such an immediate thing that you could just come out and say. And he did, like you said, this whole big drawn-out thing to bring out that one point.
Well, just speaking of the liquor really quickly, I like the point where Rick calls him the town drunk, and not 2 minutes later he says, so I brought some whiskey with me, so let's have a drink.
If only Milton had that whiskey, he could have seen the leg.
That's true.
That's true.
So maybe the governor couldn't see the leg.
Maybe.
That's too bad. It's a shame.
Hershel right.
So something I forgot to kind of point out earlier, which we did talk about a little bit when we had our caller, which was that this is the moment too where Andrea finds out about Maggie, and she doesn't know to what extent something happened to Maggie, and all she gets is the reveal from Hershel that it was really messed up. But so that pretty much leaves your mind to wander. But she never knew that there was anything that happened with Maggie, which leaves her once again to question the governor and what's going on.
Yeah. And did you catch that whole scene where when she was talking to Hershel, how Milton was just sitting there listening to the entire conversation, trying to turn the pages of the book and acting like he wasn't paying attention, but he was. That was a good scene.
Agree.
So
Well, I was going to say, well, again, just another note that he can take as well about the governor. Maybe he was indirectly also learning about the governor, and that might sway him too, as we see later on.
So after that moment, we kind of leave with Rick just trying to decide what he wants, and basically the governor gives him 2 days. And the idea is you have 2 days to decide. We'll meet here again at noon, and that's it. And they part ways, and they both return home. And before we chat about their return home, I do want to mention, guys, that there is a new film out by our producers here at AfterBuzz and Maria Menounos called Serial Buddies, which just came out this past Friday. I saw it. Hilarious times of a serial buddy comedy, serial killer buddy comedy, which we would never expect. So now you can watch what would happen if Serial Buddies were to or serial killers were to become buddy buddies. See, the title is just that infectious. It's just automatically replacing into my mind.
What would happen if buddies became serial killers? No, well, I was trying to invert it, but it didn't work.
That's the sequel.
There's a good cast in there too. Kathy Lee Gifford, Artie Lang,
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, Henry
Lloyd,
Winkler's narrating it. Yeah, so Christopher Lloyd and Chris McDonald.
Chris McDonald.
Yeah, so a lot of good, and Maria Menounos is in it as well.
A lot of big names.
Yeah, a lot of
movie.
good names. Really good.
So let's jump on the return home, which is we get this awesome music playing as we get both sides, where the governor's returning home to Woodbury and Rick is returning home to the prison. And the first thing that we get
Is this music?
is this the song.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
Nice,
Very
nice,
awesome.
Nice
Steven.
job, Steve.
Nice,
All right.
Steven.
So we get this song playing as the governor returns and straight up tells Milton that it was all a farce, what he told Rick, and that Rick needs to go. We need to kill this guy. He needs to go. And so we pretty much get our answer right away, which was the governor lying? And apparently he was. So right away it's answered for us.
Yeah.
And then Martinez gets the call as well, and he doesn't even question it. He just goes off, and he's ready to go for that. And I love the look on Milton's face with all of it. And the governor was just like this little kid who just got a piece of candy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna win.
And then Milton even made the comment about it being slaughter.
Yeah, that was a great line.
Yeah.
Then
And,
he goes,
and
yeah.
you can see there that Milton doesn't approve at this point. He really does not approve at this point. And you also see, and the other thing was that the governor didn't tell Andrea everything. He changed his story when he told Andrea what happened.
Yeah,
And
because she even asked about what the deal was between those two, and he never revealed it.
Yeah,
Right.
he would never say Michonne because that would set her off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But doesn't he think she's going to find out? I mean,
No, he doesn't. I think right now he's sitting on this high that nobody else knows what's going on, and the prison's just going to bring Michonne in because she's not really a part of the group, and he's just going to get his way. I mean, you could just see how smug he was on his face, and he was, I think, telling Andrea because she's been unhappy with him, and even though I think he still kind of cares for Andrea because obviously he wouldn't.
Well, I don't know because we all saw the clips for next week, and there was that one line that he said to Andrea. He wanted her there when the exchange happened with Rick. So that makes me think that if he's going to do a slaughter in front of Andrea, is that because he cares about Andrea? He wants her to be there?
I'm not saying cares in the fact that he wants to marry her. It's sort of a cares. But it's still somebody you're around all the time, and there's some sort of connection there.
Well, it's like what they said in this episode. When the bullets start flying, we'll see where she goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the test he's given her. Is she with Woodbury or is she with the prison?
And if she's not with Woodbury, he can kill her with the rest.
Yeah.
So back in the prison then, though, we have Rick telling everybody that it's just they're at war. He doesn't reveal to them, also kind of having this two-sided face where he tells everybody they're at war, doesn't tell them about Michonne. And then he goes up to, when Hershel comes up to chat with Rick admits to Hershel the choice that he was faced with and the Michonne, that he'd have to give up Michonne. And Hershel makes the point that Michonne has saved so many lives, she's become a part of the group now.
I love that he asks her, though, are you willing to give up your daughter's lives for it? And Hershel doesn't answer. Because that's
I mean,
a
that's
tough
a tough
decision
question. Yeah.
for a father. And as much as he likes Michonne, she's part of the group. It is still his daughter's. But he doesn't also tell Rick that that's wrong either. I think it was a great way to handle that. And I was so happy when Rick went in there and didn't say anything about Michonne because that would have set them off. And I think that's another thing the governor was maybe hoping for is if he goes in there and say, well, if we give him Michonne, then it's going to be a war, an eternal war. And that's almost where I thought he was going at with that they kind of take down each other because that's going to split up the group. So Rick, really smart, he has his head back together.
That's what I was going to say.
Pins it against the governor.
Yeah, he definitely he showed that he's back because that's a true sign of a leader. You don't tell your troops the negative portions. You know, you tell them what they need to know to get motivated. And his motivation, obviously, as he said, was to get them scared.
Yeah.
And it worked. You know, so.
Well, what I took from that question that he gave Hershel, would you be willing to sacrifice your daughter for Michonne, is there have been many times this season where Hershel and some of the other prisoners have referred to each other, even though they're not related by blood, as family. And I guess that question just puts it right on Hershel. Do you consider Michonne family? And if you do you consider her bigger than Maggie?
And I think also him asking that to Hershel was him asking, would I have Carole die for Michonne too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was definitely Rick trying to, outwardly say like, hey, this is the decision I was faced with. And as he says, I was hoping you could talk me out of it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you though, Kristin, that I think it was great that he didn't reveal to everybody, because it would have caused internal fighting if everyone knew the whole Michonne conflict and what was going on. So it's definitely smart on his part. He didn't reveal that to everybody.
Yeah, Merle's gonna kidnap her and throw her to the governor.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say, do you think that it would have really been an uproar between the group or just certain people? Obviously, Merle, it would have been. But the other people, do you think, I think they've grown attached to Michonne at this point. Do you think that they would have wanted to let her go to the governor because they know what he's going to do to her?
I think it just would have been a lot of people giving their opinions.
Yeah.
And it would have just brought chaos back. Glenn, who's finally back in saner land, he wanted to trade Michonne. He wanted to trade Merle a couple of episodes ago. So he might want to be the one to trade Michonne. He might think it'd be to solve all the problems.
So we have a couple comments from the chat. I guess 225 commented that he loved the end. Great to see how both sides viewed how they thought the meeting went. And then Pat commented that he liked how last week's episode made Michonne a much more likable character. And then this episode tonight, it was for her life that everyone else's, that was kind of like pushing the viewer's emotions, because they finally gave you that episode last week to make you care about her.
Exactly.
For viewers specifically, because if you read the comic, you know about her character, but if you only watch the show, you would have no idea, and this was finally a chance to like her.
The only time that you would have been cheering for him, that Rick, to not give Michonne away, is because the governor would kill them. This time, that's true, but you also like the character. That's the trading factor.
And Lions fan points out that everybody was preparing for something to go down next week, and that he thinks Rick and the governor might fight for Michonne's life. And I don't know if I think that the two of them are going to duke it out for Michonne's life specifically, but I do think, we're definitely seeing them prepare for that war.
Put him in the ring.
So let's let's do some the ring of the walkers there.
Yeah.
Let's bring them to Woodbury.
Rick against the governor.
That'd be a good one.
I have a question real quick. Did I miss something, but was it supposed to be as unnerving as it was when the governor brings up that he knows that Rick and the crew got a whole new load of weapons?
Oh, I thought that was unnerving.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, how did he know that?
I didn't notice that.
So what happened to his friend? Did they find that too? Like, how did they know?
I'm guessing that they have lookouts over there. Again, it's just another example of the governor using information's a powerful weapon, and he was using it a lot in his conversations with Rick, talking about the daughter that he knew about, talking about the weapons, talking about I think the dead wife story was to push his heartstrings about Lori. It was all a ploy, and well done, I guess.
And on that note, Walking Dead fan from the chat asks if we could talk about how the governor knew about Shane and Lori's affair. Which Pat on the chat.
Excuse me, I'm going to assume it was Andrea.
Yeah, that's what Pat on the chat was saying. Ha, good old Andrea.
Yeah.
So, you have to assume it has to do with that.
Well, it's probably when Andrea was still calling him Philip and having
Pillow
fun.
talk?
Yeah, pillow talk.
Pillow talk?
It was right before she was going to stab him, and it changed her mind. Yeah.
It was that exact time. It wasn't when she was drunk. It was that specifically that moment. So let's bring up some comments from you guys from the last week on YouTube. We had Tangy D, Lady Nikki, Mim Hurin 2, Jackhammer 23, Charlotte Sophia SF, Totally Modern, D Schiamni, Jason Blood, Money J Pro 23, Charm P 321, Duquesne Fan 1, Mix Maxitude, Miss Lean, Pedro Duarte, David Walker, and Jaguar Rider, and Kristin and Nando.
Yeah.
Also commenting in on it.
I'll usually answer if somebody said, I'm surprised Kristin didn't mention a Daryl thing. So I was like, wait, we actually did mention it, that Steven mentioned it while we were watching and said something about it, but not everything. Sometimes we say it in there, which is a bad thing. We don't bring it in here because I feel like we've already talked about it, or we just forget and get caught in the moment. So
Yeah.
I answered that.
And there's a lot of debate in the chat or on YouTube about over the hitchhiker.
Yeah.
And if he was a liability, that he could have been a liability. He could have ambushed them.
Or set up.
People right now don't pitch up hitchhikers, so it doesn't seem realistic. Why would people pick up hitchhikers in this zombie-apocalypse world? So a lot of people disagree with me, who kind of sympathize with the hitchhiker. What do you guys think? I still kind of think like, hey, there's nobody in this world, and this guy's still alone and defenseless. Like, you're about to start a war. Get some more people in your crew, and you know 10 people ever in your whole life. Wouldn't you want to have someone else in your life?
Yeah, but wouldn't they want Tyrese and them too? I mean,
that's what I thought. I thought they would. It's just, it seemed like most of them did, except for Rick, going crazy in that moment.
I don't know if I would have picked up the hitchhiker. I'm probably going to go with most of the comments on there. I probably would not have, because it's too nerve-wracking what could have happened in a bunch of other ways. I mean, maybe he was somebody from Woodbury.
But one of the guys was like, come on, guys, get real. I mean, would you pick up a hitchhiker today? No. So
It's
how
also
different
legal
is
in
it?
some states,
But
I believe.
I saw that comment, but I still think it's a different situation. I mean, there's no manpower. Rick needs more people on his staff, on his team. I agree with Dave. I think that I probably would have maybe picked up the hitchhiker, taken him back, interrogated him, figured out where his head was, and they need more people. You know, Woodbury's got a ton of people. That Rick needs that same thing in his group, I think.
Right, and I get that comment, and that was one of the ones that I liked and that kind of struck me, but I think this is a different world, and you have to take that into consideration. And yeah, maybe you can't trust people, maybe you can't do that, but I feel like this group is so untrusting, and it's too much right now, and they need to start accepting more people into their group if they really want to rebuild and try and make a new life for themselves. Because at the end of the day, I mean, let's be honest, if you want to repopulate and you want to like start having families come up and all of that, you need more people.
I think they would have picked him up if it was on the way back from the trip. But on the way to a trip where they're trying to get guns and they're going into dangerous territories, they don't need to be watching their back with some random person.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point.
And then if a war does go down, that's another person they even have to train. If he doesn't, obviously he doesn't know that well with the zombies because he's making a lot of noise and running. So it's somebody else you have to train, somebody else you have to watch out for when you have people that are family around you. And
This guy was yelling. He was screaming to the top of his lungs. He's already a liability just based on that. That he, I don't know what his backstory was. It'd be interesting if they did a webisode about this guy like they did with the bottomless girl. But yeah, I mean, already he's not thinking straight. He's trying to get their attention, but he's calling zombies over practically by screaming help.
But at the same time, they're already driving away. What else are you going to do?
What are you
just
gonna
run
do?
silently and be
I
like,
would start yelling too.
just waving and hoping they see you? I mean, he's got to do what he can, and it really is his only chance for survival, you must think. But Charmed P321 on YouTube asked us, which characters in the prison do we think will bite the dust this season? Charmed P321 specifically thought it was either Carole or Beth. And Nando, I think you actually responded to this one.
I said I thought those were two good choices. I also I know I said Hershel just because I felt if they have to leave the prison, he'd be a liability right away. And I think I said somebody else, but I can't remember who it is right now.
I don't think Carole will, just because she's one that you could almost see going away without it being a huge character. I think she'll and then of course now you guys will flash back and she dies in the next episode. But I think she'll actually last a lot longer than most people think. I don't think Merle's long for this.
Yeah, I think that was the other one I picked.
I mean, it was kind of, I know Nando and I have been predicting that Merle's going to make some big sacrifice for the group and finally help out the group in some positive way and then only get killed right afterwards. Because right now he is the prison group. And I think both Carole and Beth are going to die.
Yeah,
I think they're both going to die.
I think it's between Merle and Beth, probably. I think Carole will be around for a little bit longer.
Okay, so real quick on iTunes, we've got Dublin 2007, James Reese 74, Sarah S27, Tony Dorset, Blam Girls, Ryan Hoaxy, Defunk 03, SJH 31811, and Spotless 12. Dublin 2007 asked, do you think Rick will ever go back to check on Morgan? And I'll say real quick, I think we'll see him again in another season. I think we will see him, but not this season. Defunk 03 wants to... Defunk 03, we've had a lot of this, and I think we should bring it up. He's annoyed with our comic comparisons because Robert Kirkman stated repeatedly that the show's writing is different. And we realize that. But the fact of the matter is the Walking Dead show is still based off of the comics, and we kind of like to make those comparisons for people who have read the comics or who haven't, just so it's out there, so you know. And we actually had a question on the chat, which was the CDC in the comic, which was from season 1, episode 6, the final episode, and it wasn't in the comic. No. And I think it's kind of fun to point that stuff out. And we realize it's a different show, and it's different. It's just kind of fun to see, like, hey, where are they pulling from the comic? What makes it different? Yeah. And the fun thing is that the show is so much different.
Yeah.
And...
He also mentioned a lot that we didn't talk enough about Andrea. Of course, it was really weird. He mentioned on an episode that Andrea wasn't in last week. But I think Andrea's a huge character, and just looking at the clips for next week, Andrea's going to play a major part in next week's episode. I'm assuming. So so we trust me. Andrea's one of my favorite characters, and I think even when we harp on her, I think it's because we know her potential. We know how good she can be, and she right now is an integral. She's a key piece of everything that's going on.
So, guest 225, and this relates to what we were talking about earlier, they said, I have a question. I know nothing about the comic. How similar is the comic in the show? And to give you just a general piece there, every location has been the exact same. All the characters who are from the comics, for the most part, and we were kind of debating earlier how much of their backstory is true, but for the most part, their backstory is the same. They're the same character as we've seen in the past and act very similar. But that is to answer your question there. There are a lot of similarities. But let's get to some predictions.
And now, AfterBuzz predictions.
Some AfterBuzz predictions.
Dave, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start us off. Let me just get to...
Well, first, I know you think Carole and Beth are going to bite it.
I don't think that's the episode they're going to bite it. I think they're going to bite it in the season finale. We see that Andrea telling Tyrese the truth, and Milton and Andrea are kind of concerned. So I think there's going to be, in the Woodbury crew, Andrea, Tyrese, and Milton are going to try and end up helping out the prison crew. I think they're kind of going to form a group together and kind of join the prison side in some sort of way. I think that's what we're going to see in the coming episode.
I have a prediction Milton's going to do something that's going to be good and yet stupid, because he's not going to be as
That's him every
sly
week, though.
about it.
Yeah, right.
No, but I mean against the governor, that maybe if Andrea can't take care of it, he's going to try to take care of it, and that might be the moment that we see the governor slam him up against the wall or whatever that was in the preview.
Yeah.
But I think he might try to take care of it, but he is not good at any of that kind of stuff, and I think that'll cause a lot more trouble.
Yeah, my prediction is that Milton's going to bite it. I think that he's going to somehow assist Andrea with this whole thing with Rick's group. The governor's going to find out, and he's going to bite it on that episode.
I agree with you, Dave, about Tyrese and Sasha. I think that Sasha's going to bite it, and I'm going to predict this is going to be a bold one. I think Alan or Ben's going to be the one that pulls the trigger on Sasha.
And actually, relating to that real quick, on the comments on iTunes, we had someone commenting, our SJH31811 commented that the actress who plays Sasha was on last week's episode of Once Upon a Time. Is her fate sealed? And maybe that could be how she is. I mean, who knows when they film these things?
Natalie Z's in The Following and Justified, so it is possible for a character to be in both. But it's funny, like when John Barenthal got signed on for L.A. Noire, before he officially bit the bucket in Walking Dead, they were like, oh yeah, he could coexist in these two shows, and then the following week he was dead.
He's dead.
So yeah, it could happen either way.
And final comment from the chat: my daddy ate my eyes. Tyrese, can't wait until he joins Rick's group. I feel it coming. Had to say it like that. All right, guys, so I am Dave Klein. Once again, you can find me on Twitter at @TheDaveKlein, that's Klein, or go to my website, djk-online.com.
I'm Nando Velasquez, and you can reach me at Twitter at Nandovel, Nandovel.
And I'm Kristin Carole, and you can find me on Twitter, Kristin Carole, Carole 13.
I'm Derrial Christon. You can find me under my name, Derrial Christon, Derrial Christon, on Twitter and Facebook.
Thanks for joining.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Butter later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.